Welcome back to the channel, and a special welcome to all our new viewers. It's great to have you with us. Solar panels have never been this cheap. A full rooftop setup today costs about 1/10 of what it did back in 2011. Yet drive down most streets and you'll still see miles of empty shingles. We've been told it's the price tag, but that excuse is starting to ring hollow. The real roadblocks are sneakier, shifting regulations nobody reads, an electrical grid that's basically held together with duct tape and hope, and, yes, the quiet opinions of the family next door. Stick around and we'll unpack why the green wave hasn't hit your block yet. Here's a head-scratcher. In the first quarter of 2025, new home solar installs in the US dropped 13% from the first quarter of 2024, even as panel prices kept tumbling. That dip didn't come from some sudden national allergy to saving money. It came because the battleground moved, from sticker price to fine print rulebooks and the neighborly small talk over the fence. The policy maze revolves around a wonky phrase, net metering. Think of your roof as a tiny power plant. At noon, you shove extra electrons onto the grid and expect fair credit when you pull power back at midnight. Net metering is the rulebook that decides how generous that credit is. Over the last 3 years, big utilities have lobbied hard and convinced regulators in several states to slash those rates. California, our biggest solar market, cut the net metering credit by about 75% in 2023. The result? A typical payback period doubled from 7 years to 14. Even eco-friendly optimists start to waffle when the math stretches that far. The federal investment tax credit was changed, and what was a 30% credit is set to expire at the end of 2025. Toss in new tariffs on imported Chinese panels, and you've got a regulatory cocktail that makes investors queasy and stalls projects before they ever break ground. Suppose every state suddenly restored generous net metering tomorrow, we'd still slam into the grid itself. America's electrical grid was engineered for a one-way trip. Electricity marches from a distant plant along high-voltage lines, slips through neighborhood transformers, and pops out your wall socket. Rooftop solar flips that model on its head, pushing juice back up the same wires. Grid operators now juggle hundreds of tiny sources instead of a handful of big ones. On a bright spring day, when the sun's shining and the AC units are silent, line voltage can spike so high that safety gear simply shuts everything down. The fix, storage and smart controls, costs serious money that utilities are in no rush to spend. Texas, California, and Hawaii have already shelled out billions to curtail, waste, excess solar instead of risking blackouts. For a homeowner, that means your shiny new array might be forced offline at high noon, wiping out both savings and bragging rights. Cash and circuitry only tell half the story. The other hurdles are 100% human. Start with curb appeal. Plenty of folks think solar panels look like a robot glued to the roof. Homeowners associations, HOAs, hold veto power over any roof change and often insist on cookie-cutter streetscapes. Roughly 1 in 4 Americans lives under an HOA, and each one sets its own quirks. Then there's the renter's dilemma. About 35 to 36% of households rent, and the person paying the power bill rarely owns the roof. Landlords have zero incentive to drop 28 grand, so tenants can save $30 a month. Split incentives lock millions of families out of the game before it even starts. Surveys also show lingering trust issues. Some folks worry installers will rip up shingles. Others fear the savings promised in glossy brochures will vanish like a mirage. These fears spread at cookouts and in Facebook groups, quietly cementing the status quo. Stuck behind one of these barriers? Drop your story in the comments. Real policymakers read them, and so do the engineers cooking up the next wave of solar tech. Your experience nudges the fix-it list in the right order. The too expensive dragon has been mostly slain. Today, the bigger dragons are policy uncertainty, a grid built for a bygone era, and the everyday friction of human quirks. Good news, all three can be solved. Community solar programs let renters buy into off-site arrays. New virtual power plant software can link thousands of home batteries into a rock-solid grid resource. Cities from Denver to Orlando are already streamlining HOA solar rules. The transition won't flip overnight, but every year another puzzle piece clicks in. So the next time someone shrugs and says solar flopped because it's pricey, you can tell them the real story and point to the policy meetings, grid upgrades, and backyard barbecues where the future is actually being hammered out.